This is probably one of the best prep ahead meals, which is chock full of vitamins, and it's pretty tasty too. Let me show you how to make a burro bowl, Sabroso style. Come on, let's get started.
Todo queda sabroso.
A burro bowl is simply a dish that consists of a base, which is some type of grain. Today I'll be using quinoa, protein, vegetables, legumes, and these ingredients are interchangeable. Okay, we're going to make our quinoa, and it's fairly simple. We're using a 2-to-1 ratio, meaning 2 parts water to 1 part quinoa. Bring quinoa to a boil, then reduce heat, cover, and allow the liquid to evaporate. Did you know that quinoa originated in the Andes Mountains of Peru and Bolivia? Quinoa is labeled as a superfood because it contains more protein, fiber, vitamins, and minerals than other grains and seeds. Peru is the largest producer of quinoa in the world. Okay, so our quinoa is done. As you can see, all the water is evaporated. You just take a fork and fluff it up. I'm going to transfer this to a baking sheet with parchment paper. Then we're going to allow this to cool for about half an hour so it's nice and cold. So one of the items that I'm using today is definitely one that you have to prepare ahead of time because it's a pickled vegetable. So curtido is a pickled cabbage. Today I'm using a red cabbage, but you can also use green. And I'll also be adding some shredded carrots and some cilantro. I have about 1/3 of that red cabbage. If you notice, I put it on another cutting board, a plastic one, simply because this stains a real deep purple. And so I don't want that on my wood cutting board. So I'm just doing it on a plastic one. And we're going to cut it into thin strips. Okay, then we're going to take a mason jar. Then we're going to add our red cabbage, which we're also going to mix in some shredded carrot, cilantro that I left whole leaves, just got rid of the stem. And I'm just going to layer it in the mason jar in that order. Okay, then we're going to add a cup of hot water, a 1/2 cup of apple cider vinegar, a teaspoon of salt. Then we're going to place the lid on, give it a good shake, marinate for a couple hours. Now we're going to roast some vegetables. You always want to set your oven at 375 or higher to get that nice roasting action. So the first thing we're going to do is set our oven at 400 degrees. Sweet potatoes are a great option when it comes to this type of dish. Unlike regular potatoes, sweet potatoes are lower on the glycemic index, which means you won't see that spike in blood sugar, and sweet potatoes are perfect for roasting. Now I've washed them thoroughly, scrubbed them to remove any dirt. The skin actually has the most vitamins, and so I'm going to leave the skin on, but I'm going to cut the potato into bite-sized pieces. Then I'm going to place them on a sheet pan with parchment paper. I place parchment paper just so that it's less mess. When cleaning up afterwards, hit it with a little bit of olive oil, a little bit of kosher salt, some cracked black pepper, a little bit of cinnamon, not too much. And we're just going to toss that. Make sure they're spread out. Then we're going to roast this at 400 degrees for about 25 to 30 minutes. I also found in the market these golden beets. My wife loves beets, so I know that this will be a treat for her. And again, it's perfect for roasting. And for this, I am going to peel the skin. And then I'm going to cut that in half as well. And in half again. Can you see that? Do you see that beautifulness? And then we're going to cut them into bite-sized pieces again. And we're just going to hit that with a little bit of oil. and a little bit of salt. Give it a quick toss. Spread it out. And then this goes into the oven at 400 degrees for about 20 minutes. Okay, and the last thing we're going to roast is asparagus. Now there's an area of this asparagus that's a little bit more fibrous than the rest that we're going to cut off. And the best way to find that is simply by bending it, and wherever it snaps, that's the piece that you want to use. Do not throw this out. This could be used in vegetable stock, to make asparagus soup, a lot of ideas for the stem, so don't throw that out. Okay, now that I have the stems cut, I'm going to cut this in more bite-sized pieces. And again, a little bit of olive oil. I like to add a little bit of garlic, kosher salt, cracked black pepper, and then I like to hit it with a little bit of lemon juice. And then toss that. Spread it out. And then this goes into that 400-degree oven for about 10 to 15 minutes. Okay, the last thing we're going to roast are chickpeas, which I drained, rinsed, and let it dry on some paper towels. Again, a little bit of olive oil, some kosher salt. I'm gonna add a little bit of cumin and a little bit of cayenne. And we're going to toss this. And we're going to roast this at 400 degrees for about 10 to 15 minutes. Okay, so now we're going to make a honey lime dressing. To that, I'm adding about 2 teaspoons of honey. You could also use agave. I'm gonna add about a half a teaspoon of garlic paste, 1/4 teaspoon of cumin, a little bit of salt. I'm also adding a tablespoon of white vinegar just for a little sharpness. And I'm also adding a tablespoon of whole grain mustard. You could also use Dijon. And about a half a cup of oil, olive oil. Then we're going to take our immersion blender and we're going to blend. And there you have a quick and easy honey lime dressing. We're adding some of that honey lime dressing. We're also going to add a little bit of salt and a little bit of pepper and some freshly cut parsley. And we're going to mix that around. Add just a little bit more dressing. Don't add all this at the same time, just little by little so that you don't overdress it. You still want to keep that quinoa nice and fluffy. A little taste. Perfect quinoa. Okay, so most of our components are ready to go. We just have one final thing to do and then we're ready to serve. So you know we have to drizzle it with some flavorful sauce. Today we're going to be making a spicy tahini. If you're not familiar with tahini, it is roasted and ground sesame seeds used in a lot of Middle Eastern cuisine. And today I'm going to combine it with a chipotle pepper to give it that spicy element. And it's really going to bring this dish together. A chipotle pepper, just one nice size will do. We're also adding the juice of half a lemon. We're also adding some Greek yogurt, about 2 tablespoons, and a pinch of salt. Then we're going to blend. Okay, now it's time to plate up. Give a generous amount of quinoa as the base. I have here some queso fresco. You can make this totally vegan by not adding cheese or maybe adding some vegan cheese. And then an avocado. And then last but not least, I'm gonna drizzle it with that spicy tahini. And there you have it, my version of a Buddha bowl. Sabroso. Todo queda sabroso.